In the last episode, we built these giant cactus characters that each hold an array of cactus farms. All this cactus has one specific purpose: green dye. But instead of collecting it and smelting it and putting it away in a chest somewhere, I want to build up an entire town themed around old Western movies, and I want the bank of that town to hold all of our dye. But that's not all. See, this won't be just any old Western town. This is a part of what will soon become an entire adventure park called Dyeland, with attractions, rides, and fun experiences tied to collecting each and every one of Minecraft's 16 dye. So not only do I have to make an entire old Western town, I've got to make a game out of collecting my green dye. And it turned out a little complicated, but here's how it went. I started at the back of the building where I had decided I wanted the vault to go. I then moved to creating spaces for a teller to stand, some seating areas, and then moved to the upstairs. Next up was the sheriff's department. I've been having a lot of issues with replay mod, so I don't have access to the footage, but this is what I ended up with. At this point, there weren't many more buildings I knew definitively where I wanted to put them. I knew I wanted a saloon on the corner of the town square across from the bank, and a hotel on the other corner. The rest was a complete toss-up. So I just followed a general theme, had a few inspiration pictures pulled up, and finished the general outlines for all the buildings. After those were all laid out, it was time to take care of the ground. Of course, a western town isn't going to have lush grass, so I ripped up everything and replaced it with sand. Then I came in with some various texture blocks to roughen up and muddy up the space. This is kind of a loose idea of what I want the roads to look like. I'll come back as one of our last steps and touch them up. For now, getting the roads in really just kind of helped me put my mind into a Western mood and helped me put the picture together for what I was envisioning this town to look like. Alright, so I think I want to start down here at the entrance of our town. This right here is going to be our sheriff's office. Now this is supposed to be a theme park, so it's supposed to be like family friendly. And to try and capture that essence, I think I want to try and incorporate as much openness as I can. So we're going to try and have big old windows, big open doorways, and just generally more like inviting vibes than you would feel in a classic Western town. So big windows, big door, and open spaces, hopefully, if we can get it to work. You know, I've been playing a lot of modded lately, and I really miss backpacks and easy storage stuff. Okay, some mangrove instead. Blends in a little bit better, that's for sure. And then I think we could come back and just use some stone for now. Oh, and I don't have it in my inventory. I was thinking we could take some mangrove fences and maybe place them on the edges. And I have to run back again. Now with some mangrove trapdoors, we are going to come on the inside and do something like that on both sides. Okay. Not bad. It helps create like a little bit of a frame, but it also feels like it might go a little bit too high. So, okay, don't mind it, honestly. Something I could live with. Or we could try just bringing in the window well a little bit more. Which do I like better? Can't really tell right now. Now for the door, just something very, very simple. Ooh, actually, this should be dark oak, but I need to sleep. Okay, and I'm also missing... Oh no. I'm flying all the way back to my base because I know I have at least one dark oak door. This is an unflattering zoom. You cannot see any of my face here. There. I'm getting one dark oak door. One door. Oh, eight. I'm glad I came back for that because I feel like I'm going to use a lot of those. All right, like I was saying, we're going to put a little bit of a frame in the back, and we're making it darker so that it stands out a little bit better against all the other woods. And dark oak looks really good against mangrove and spruce, so it's a nice complement, creates a nice contrast, and looks good. It's one of the best doors in my opinion. So I'm not sure if that screams like old Western, specifically old Western sheriff, but it's a work in progress. It's not really a theme that I have any experience in, so really this is all just going to be a learning process, and I'm sure our first build is not going to look as good as our last build of the town, so we're just going to have to put our heads down and work a little bit and try our best, really. Now I think for these pillars, we're going to throw a little bit of curveball into the palette here. We're going to use like every single wood type, but I think jungle might look really good here. Because in my opinion, jungle wood kind of gives like an arid feel, and then it also has those red tones that we are going to complement with our mangrove wood. So if we do something like that, you can see it complements the red fairly well, and it kind of blends in with the sand. Makes it feel worn and weathered, but not too worn and weathered, you know? I might be using too many different colors, but we'll just see how it turns out, okay? And I think to give this a bit of an outline, we're going to place spruce where the pillars are and then connect them back with the jungle elements like this. Something like that. And then we'll take the jungle like that, maybe? Oh, this is going to be a challenge. This is going to be a challenge. Let's fill out the rest and see how we feel about it. I think I want to try and blend this layer with the roof before we move into the spruce. So we're going to try and strip some jungle wood back here and then bring in our stripped spruce like that. And it might look okay. It might look okay. Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. I really don't want to overdo it on the variance in color and blocks that we use, but I think we're going to try oak wood for the base there and bring in another wood type. Okay. Don't know. I think another part that's throwing me off is the spruce lining. I do like it. I think that's the part that's throwing me off. So I'm going to try and replace the stripped jungle wood with some stripped spruce wood instead. See if that fixes it. And then if not, we're going to try something else. Yeah, I could live with that. I think I could live with that. I do want to change this. Maybe we'll bring in some... Ooh, actually, tough would be pretty good. All right, tough there. Yeah. And then obviously we need to replace the dirt with sand. But as a general facade, not a bad start, I think. We'll see. We'll come back at the end of this video. Maybe we'll tweak some things, but for having never really built in this style before, I think this isn't that bad of a start. Maybe you guys can tell me. Let me know. I'm sure you'll let me know if it's absolutely trash, but please don't be too harsh. Okay, yeah, I do. I think it's gonna grow on me. And I think up there we'll do some banners, but we might wait until the end to do that so that we could just do all the names of all the different shops at once, and we're not going back and forth and cluttering our inventory even more. So the front is in a pretty good spot. We're gonna do this section right here, which is gonna be like a mock jail, like a tiny little jail cell that you can access from the inside of the sheriff's department. Now, I'm probably going to be making a lot of different passes at these builds today. I'm going to hop around to basically whichever ones I feel like doing at the time. So we're going to lay some like very basic ideas down, and then I'll come through and add details as I feel like them. I might do details right away, might wait a couple days, kind of see how the things sit with me, and then work from there. Oh, oh man, he's got some good stuff. I really don't have time for you right now. All right, now to keep this like a jail, I think I want to leave some small open sections for some barred windows. And then I also want to keep the same roof pattern, so let's probably drop this down by a block. Okay, and then we'll do, what was it? It was like that, right? And then maybe that. Just a little bit of a different slant, but still basically the same idea. Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. You know what would be really funny, except I don't think you're gonna stay. I'd love for you to see my new jail. Yeah, just right through here. Nope. Okay. I was gonna say it looks like we have our first volunteer, but I really don't think he's gonna do it. Fetch the block. Fetch the block. Okay, not a bad little start. Definitely not in its final place, but not too terrible. And from the outside, it's believable. Like you could see that. I mean, especially if they're our iron bars, that would help this a lot. Yeah, for sure. That's a jail. That's a jail if I have ever seen one. Okay, no idea what I'm gonna do with the roof, so we're just gonna leave that for now, and I think it's looking pretty good, if I do say so myself. Again, for never having done this style before, this feels like something I could see in a Western. Okay, I was productive. Now it's time for a distraction. What exactly do you have? What can I take? I will be right back. I do really wish that Mojang would incorporate some kind of a mini block system into the game. I feel like if they're not going to give us a bunch of extra blocks at once, giving us a bunch of the mini versions would be absolutely perfect. Like, it is just enough to add extra detail without like overcrowding the game too much, I think. But I also could be in the minority on that one. I think that they're really neat. Okay, you have served your purpose, and now it's time to have your hero ending. You are going to ride off into the sunset. Yes, that's right. Oh, and there he goes. What a hero. Again, we are still missing a lot of the details that are going to go into this, but as like a main baseline for us to follow, I really think this came out a lot better than I was expecting. And it's given me quite a bit of confidence. So I think I want to try and tackle the bank next. And you can see we already have another palette lined out. We're going to lean more heavily into the spruce. Maybe we'll use some dark oak or something like that. That's kind of regal. But we'll see what we can do. Honestly, pretty good start. This is, after all, the building we're going to be visiting the most when we're in town to get all the dye that we need, so it has to be at least a little bit pretty to look at. We meant for some more clean looking blocks, some smoother finishes on the tough by using that polished variant, and overall just sparing no expense when it came to all the stripped logs and stuff we were using. And right next to the bank, I decided I wanted to put in a general store. Nothing too fancy, but enough space to fit a bunch of stock for, products and stuff that the town would need. And then I decided I wanted to bring in a little bit more color, so I grabbed some blue terracotta, which isn't super vibrant, and used that as like the upper register of the build. I'm not quite sure what this thing is called, but I see it a lot in Western towns, so I put that thing up, the big whatever. We'll put a sign on it eventually, and then I put a bunch of fences on the back to make it look like it was being supported back there. And since I was this close to the end, I decided to just finish off this section of the town. I did something a little unique with these two builds, creating a staircase in between them leading up to an apartment of some kind on the second floor of the building at the end. I'm not really sure what I want to do with this building yet, but I think I'm going to close off the smaller one and not do any kind of interior once we get around to doing those. This first chunk of land actually came out so much better than I was expecting. We've got like just enough variation to where they don't all feel the same, but they all feel like they could be part of some kind of a Western town. Some of them aren't going to be opened up to the public. We're going to have a few of them open, a few of them closed. But for the most part, like the interiors still need done, and then that's pretty much it. We still actually have a lot more work to do on the other half of town, but this is a phenomenal start. I'm very happy with how this came out. I spent a little time getting organized, so now I want to start on this build over here. This one is going to be the main part of the entryway set of buildings. So over here, we have the sheriff's station, which is going to act as like a photo booth. I think I've decided. I want there to be like photo opportunities, costumes, and stuff like that inside the build. And then on the other side here, this is going to be the visitor center, or the telegraph office. Now, as the town's telegraph office, this is going to contain basically all the town's information, and we're going to play that into the visitor center theme. We're going to have maybe some kind of like maps, some layouts, some like restrooms, drink stations, stuff like that. Stuff that you would find in like an admin portion of a theme park. But of course, that's all on the inside. The outside still needs to be finished, and it still needs to look like it's part of a Western town. So I'm going to hit the hay, and then we'll get started. Now for this one, I tried leaning into a bit of a different color scheme to help it stand out better against everything else in town. It had a bit of a shaky start, but I think we landed in a solid place with this one. Next up was the coroner. Obviously, I had to keep this build drab and ever so slightly ominous. This space needs to feel like it oozes death and decay, but in like a family-friendly kind of way. I'm still torn on whether I want to do an interior with this one yet. I feel like if I did, it would be hard not to go over the top with too many dark themes. So we'll see. Lightening up a little bit, it was finally time to work on the Cactus Juice Saloon. With a name like that, I gotta lean into the color theme, bringing back the green terracotta we used for our giant cactus caricatures. I initially wanted a second story to this build, but decided to keep it simple and shorter to the ground. And the diagonal was a fun challenge to work with here, but I think it turned out just right. And finally, it was time to finish this block off. The last build won't have an interior, like a few of the others, but I still decided to finish off the back of it since I want a pathway eventually leading on the back side of the park. This area back here is going to be mostly for the crew or the people that work in the park. So it might have like a break room somewhere, maybe a medical tent, or just random stuff really. Eventually, not today. This project is coming along so well. I'd say we're about like 3/4 of the way done here. The last bit that we're missing is just this block over here. This plot of land is going to be our hotel. And the idea behind this build is I want it to catch your eye from the entrance of the park. So as soon as you step through the portal, this thing is going to be right front and center. And I want it to pull your attention into the town and into this spot here. I don't have any plan for this build. I have a few reference images that I'm going to follow. But other than that, we're going to try our best to see if we can make something iconic. And then after we get the hotel in, we'll have a couple of builds on either side of it just to kind of round it out. I've been thinking about changing up the way that we end the town over here. I think it'd be fun to do like a haunted manor or like a spooky mansion on the edge of the town. Not quite sure if we'll get to this section of the town today, but I think we're going to at least try and finish up this area and then kind of reevaluate, see how we're feeling. And I know there's been a lot of time lapses in today's episode, but we're going to hit another one and hopefully it doesn't crash. Roll it. Of course, since I said something, this replay mod decided to corrupt or crash or whatever it's doing, but I can't access it. So here's a little walk around overview. I went with some lighter tones all around to help it feel more inviting compared to the rest of the town. Played around with throwing it on a diagonal, which had me struggling at first, but I got it to work okay. I think it turned out fairly good. We were going for iconic and gotta say, it works. Next was time to move on to the builds surrounding the hotel. I've seen liveries commonly placed near hotels and saloons for people to store their horses at while they're in town. So I figured right next to the hotel, at the edge of town, and right before you enter the wildlands with the giant cacti and all that stuff felt like the right place to go. And for the other side of the hotel, I thought a doctor's office would be the perfect way to end this stretch of builds. I don't want to make this too big, but I did want to give it a second story so the doctor could have like their office on the ground floor and an apartment upstairs to live in. And with those two done, this chunk of the town felt like it was lacking, so I rounded out the road and then finished off this set of buildings with a blacksmith. Since we're right next to the livery stables, this felt like the perfect place to put this. At the moment it feels a little out of place, but we'll create like a wall or some kind of barrier that kind of blocks off that weird back portion. And with this last build, I think the town is fairly close to finished. None of these builds have interiors quite yet. I want to do a few in today's episode, but I think we're going to leave that for a future time. We still are missing a few different elements of the town, like this ride over here, the haunted mansion down there. But all in all, I'd say we're about 1 or 2 episodes away from actually finishing this park, but definitely still a little bit away. Now, we've got all of these buildings in place, but a lot of them are lacking interiors, and actually all of them, 99% of the interiors are incomplete. And I say 99% because I've actually laid out one of them already. Coming back to the bank, this is the one that I want to finish in today's episode, and I want to take care of these guys right here. This guy is the one that I want. Not sure where this one came from, so we are going to have to get rid of him. But this is the interior I want to finish off today's episode with, and then also I have to go over some spaghetti stone with y'all. But before we get started on an interior, I want to name that guy. I've made this flight way too many times today. Okay, I need to rename this name tag, and there we go. Miles the Bank Teller, like Miles Teller, get it? So Mr. Miles the Bank Teller will be one of our first permanent residents in the town. And a few of you may have noticed we also have this horse over here. This guy was roaming around the property, so I figured I'd just leash him up so he would stop trying to follow me and my delicious golden carrots. But we have a name for our bank teller, now we need a name for our horse, and various other characters that we're going to throw around this town with either armor stands or random mobs that we find in the area. We need a lot of names. So if y'all have any suggestions, like based on westerns that you enjoy or things like that, drop a bunch of names down below and I will keep them in mind whenever we start adding lots of life into these very, very dead builds. Like I said, we are very nearly done with today's episode, and the last thing I want to do is the interior of the bank. But before that, I have a bit of a thing to show you. A thing is probably an appropriate way to describe this. Now, if we walk all the way around to the side of the bank, we have a little alleyway that leads to a doorway. Now, this doorway leads to a very unfinished room. Actually, we didn't need to walk all the way around. We are at the back of the bank, and right here is the vault. Now, this is kind of the feature piece of the bank right here. This is going to be the place where we come and collect all of our shulker boxes of green dye. But as you can see, there is no shulker box present right now. And why is that? Well, of course, I had to be weird and creative with it all. You see, this isn't going to be a normal bank. What's going to happen is we're going to make this into a little bit of a game. Once you walk into the bank, you're going to walk up here. This is going to be the teller's counter right here. And what we are going to do is we are going to intimidate the teller, the cashier that's standing behind the counter here. We're going to say, hey, give me all the money you got and put it in this bag. And this bag is going to be an empty shulker box that we throw into here. Pretend this is empty, something that we throw in this hopper. Now this hopper is going to take it and dispense it down below into our redstone. Once the shulker gets dropped all the way down there, a timer starts. And then it'll process the shulker down below, it'll fill it up with cactus, and after a few seconds, I guess we could just show you. So if we hit this button to intimidate the clerk, after a few seconds, this door is going to open. Like that. And we're running, and then we wait for our shulker box. It's getting filled up right now, and then in a second or two... Oh, darn. Okay, I guess I didn't have one primed. Okay, it seems I broke my redstone a little bit. All right, take 2. So we are a bank robber, and we're saying, hey, give me all the cash and put it in this bag here. And now we gave the teller our bag. We're going to hit this button to intimidate the clerk, and we're going to wait a second, and eventually the door is going to open. We're going to have to run in and wait and wait. And then right here, grab our shulker and run before the door closes on us. It's not much, but it's a fun little mini game that we're going to have to play anytime we want to get a shulker of green dye. And this is going to always be a full shulker of green dye. Pretty fun, right? Yeah, definitely a little bit silly, but we're going to take a dive into the redstone, and I'm going to try my best to explain to you what is happening with this nonsense. So starting off from this system right here, that is going to be where our shulker box falls down, the one that we give our teller. It's going to go down this water stream and into this hopper, which is going to check and see if there's any extra green dye in the shulker box. The general idea behind this is that we can take a full shulker box of green dye from up top, take whatever we need out of it, and then just throw it back into the system, and it'll detect if there's still stuff in the system. So say if we take out just a half a stack of green dye, it'll come in here, it'll unload all the rest of the green dye and throw it back into the system. And then it'll take the empty shulker box and throw it over there. So technically the teller isn't putting the money in the bag. The money should be already loaded into bags, and then it's just shooting up an already loaded shulker box, if that makes any sense. All this nonsense over here leads into our storage system. We just have a double chest that's kind of overflow protection. We have a few hoppers that add a little bit of extra space, but mostly the storage is being done by this shulker box right here. Now we do have a fail-safe system, so if this hopper ever fills up or gets one more item than it's supposed to and it's not filling into this chest, then the whole thing will turn off and we won't have anything moving when it shouldn't be. This system is very overly complicated because I wanted it to have a bunch of fail-safes in place. If we're not going to be actually smelting stuff, I don't want things moving, so that way it's a little more lag friendly, and all in all, just trying to get this as efficiently done as we can. Now, this is the end, but there's still a little bit in between the beginning and this part here. So from our 4 cactus farms over here, we have all of the cactus being shot along water streams until this point over here by where I'm standing. All the cactus is loaded up into a spare double chest and a little bit of overflow in the hopper. If this is full, they'll go over here and get composted down and turned into bone blocks. Now this is a very typical minecart loader system, and you can see it's not actually loading any of the hoppers, and that is because we tried to create a smart system. You see this, I'm not really sure what to call it. I keep wanting to say it's a binary encoder, but I know that's not exactly what this is. Basically, it'll just detect whenever these hoppers get full. So if I take one item out of here, it'll move that rail, and the signal up there will detect that this rail line is no longer powered, so it'll send out a hopper minecart to refill the hopper that we just emptied. We can get a better look at that right here. So we took that out and it changed the system. It released the minecart over there, and then it's back up because it noticed that this hopper is now full. So basically anytime anything gets smelted up here, it's instantly refilled, but it's not constantly moving along this track, which is what we wanted. And when I say this is overly complicated, it is overly complicated. This is probably the most over-engineered cactus farm ever made. It did not need to be this complicated. But moving on from here, once the cactus is in the furnace, it actually needs smelted up. So we have another minecart over here, and this one is being supplied with bamboo. This bamboo travels along from a water line over here, where it is automatically collected and farmed up in these 2 little bamboo farms. They're not like the most efficient bamboo farms in the world. They don't need to be. We don't need a large amount of cactus at the moment. We don't need a lot of green dye. So these can just be some very, very passive farms that just slowly collect bamboo. It's your typical farm. We use an observer to detect the growth and then pistons to break all the bamboo. And then once that's detected, a signal is sent out to these minecarts, which are otherwise stationary. They collect all of the bamboo and send it down here to this crafter array, which turns them into blocks and then planks and then over into our fuel system. And once the system detects enough items in this minecart, I believe it's like 18 or 20, something like that, it'll send this minecart out down, it'll fill these furnaces with some fuel, and then it'll come back. It usually fills about 2 planks, I think, in each furnace, once down and once back, and then that's enough to smelt 3 items, I think. And then once this minecart goes, we detect that movement over here. We set up a hopper clock so that this hopper minecart can go down, collect, come back, whatever. It'll finish its collection over here, unload everything into our extra storage, and then it won't move anymore because the hopper clock will have turned off. And then back to where we started this all, this is just a regular shulker loader. The only difference in this system is that we are doing an AND gate to detect whenever the shulker is both full and whenever we request it from upstairs. So right now this shulker box is full and it's giving a signal that's hard powering this torch, which means that it's off. And then whenever we request it from upstairs by intimidating the clerk, it powers this one as well, turning this off and activating the AND gate, which then triggers the shulker box loader system and then shoots it up to the top for us. Now, this is the clock at the very top, which starts whenever we hit the button. This is what controls the door. It's not super complicated, just a little comparator decay clock and nothing much else to it. But this right here is the water stream that the shulker box shoots up with from the basement down there. And then it basically just detects whenever there's something in this dropper and then shoots it up and dispenses it up there, right here. So anytime that there's a shulker box shot up here, it'll get dispensed at this point right here in the middle of the vault. All an overly complicated way to collect, of all dyes, green dye, which I don't use very often. And I have way more than I need ever. But you know, it's a fun little game, and I really enjoyed putting it together. It took several hours. I mean, probably close to 8, 10, 12 hours, something like that. I don't even remember how long I spent in that hole, but that was one of the first things that I did after doing those big cacti behind me. One of the first things that I put in the town, and I have to tell you, I needed a break after doing that, but it was really fun in the process. And I hope that was comprehensive in some way, but we're going to take a brain break. We are going to do a little bit of an interior now, and then we will probably call it a quits for today. We'll see how I'm feeling. We'll see how long the episode's running. But yeah, I'd say so far I'm fairly happy with how this project is coming together. And just a little bit of time later, we have ourselves a finished interior. Still no signs up top, but moving through the front door, we are greeted with this new and improved view. Initially, I wanted to include a second floor to this building, but I kind of changed my mind. I rearranged the room a little bit and we came out with this. Not too bad, if I do say so myself. I did some fun stuff with the floor here. This is some glazed terracotta and some moss carpets. The moss carpets creep up on whatever block you place them next to, and this created kind of like an ornate design on the bottoms of these blocks. I'm not sure if I love this, but it is something I wanted to try and play around with since these blocks are new, kind of see if we can get them to work and in a place that I like. Of course, we still have the same like general layout. We ended up putting 2 different teller stands on either side of the bank here, and then we included our teller right here, Miles the bank teller. You can see we actually have a vault now. This isn't like too futuristic, too fancy. I felt like copper felt appropriate in the old western vibe, so that's the color that we went with. We still have access over here to the redstone if we ever need to go down there, and then the redstone itself still works. So the concept is still the same. You come up to the teller, you say, hey, give me all your money, and then you throw them the bag and you say, well, you know, he's not really cooperating, so whatever. We push this button to intimidate the clerk, and then after a little bit of time, the door should open up like that, and then we run inside. This is the new and improved vault, and this is our shulker box of green dye. Of course, I got distracted showing you the vault, but nothing too fancy here. Just kind of went with some basic ideas. Might come back through here with some armor stands, through like some gold bars or something on the floor. I'm not really sure, but none of this town is really like super finished right now. This is all just kind of placeholders until we you know, get in the mood to work on certain things. I'm not too stressed about getting this all done today. It's a big project, so I'm okay waiting and letting the inspiration carry me as it sees fit. Of course, this shulker box is great, but I actually don't need any green dye right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw it back into the hopper. I'm going to press this button. It's going to get dispensed downstairs in just a second. There it goes. And it's going to get unloaded right there. I didn't get to show you that earlier, but that's kind of what that process looks like. And then you hear a little bit of clacking. That is because we have an access way back here. If I can get past the teller, he's a little aggressive. But this access way right here lets us open the vault door in case we need to get in here for whatever reason. We can do that. So if we wanted to come through here and detail, we don't have to worry about getting stuck in the door. We could also just, you know, break the door like we did earlier. Not really that big of a deal, not that big of a feature to add, but it was just something small and neat that I felt like was necessary for the space. So I'm going to close that up again, and we are going to head out. And some final thoughts before we actually head out. I wanted to leave this build more open, more airy. It helps it feel more regal. The higher ceilings makes it feel like a bigger, more imposing build than it is. And in general, like the old inspiration pictures that I looked at had a lot of like open ceilings, these supports in the middle of the room, and then like these kind of like arches and walls and stuff in certain places, but not really any walls connecting to ceilings. So we tried to capture that vibe as best we could. And with that first interior, I think I want to call it a quits for today's episode. There are still a ton of interiors to do and a ton of projects, details, and whatnot to work on in this area. And again, I don't want to overwhelm myself, so I don't want to feel like I need to get it all done in today's episode. I feel like we got enough done already that I'm okay just putting a pin in this and coming back later. And speaking of coming back later, I have a little bit of a spoiler to show y'all. Now, this is a creative copy of my world, and I'm going to be very careful not to turn around and show you just yet. But next episode, we're going to take a break from the Western theme. We're going to come back and expand this area of town. And I'm going to turn my camera, but I'm going to blur it out so you guys can't really see too much. But this is going to be our plan for the next episode, just to give you guys a little bit of a teaser, a little bit of hype. But that is going to be our plans for next time. Now, with that said, I'm hoping to keep like a regular cadence with these survival episodes, switching back and forth between modded. So for those of you that are here for the modded content, don't worry, that is still on the table and it's coming very soon. But I do want to at least get one survival episode out a month. So this is this month's. Next month will be that little spoiler I just showed you, and we'll work on some modded stuff in between then and now. But I've been really excited about that project that we're going to do next episode. But I just needed to get this stuff done and get some groundwork laid in this town, which also had me super excited. So it really wasn't too bad bringing myself from working on that to working on this over here. I do really hope you all enjoyed what we were able to get up to today. And I know that I say this quite frequently, but I was very pleasantly surprised with how we were able to tackle this project. Not to beat a dead horse here, but again, I've never built in a Western style before. And for a first time doing this stuff, I feel like I was able to create something that, at least in my mind, feels fairly Western. Of course, we're missing all the details. We're missing a lot of just life in this town, but we will get to that in the future. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, people of all ages, I'm going to stop rambling. I do appreciate you all making it to this point of the video. And as always, I hope you all have a wonderful day.